guys, it's Dani and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're here for the first time. It is July, so that means it is time for a mid-year book chat. And I'm so excited. I have 25 books that I read so far this year, and yeah. Let's dive right in. There's a few that I have on hand, but most of them I'm just going to kind of put wherever they'll fit on the screen. Okay, so our first book is Madhouse. Don't Talk to Strangers. This is by Miguel Estrada. So this was a quick read. I would say maybe like novella style, just kind of a small book. We follow Lucas, who's a kid whose parents are getting a divorce, and he runs away, and he gets picked up, and he gets put into this madhouse, right? And has to try to survive there. I thought it was a pretty good story. The reveal was... I'm trying to remember if I had, like, kind of had a sneaking suspicion. I don't feel like it was like, oh my god, I'm shocked. But I feel like it was a good reveal. I feel like there's a little bit of reverberation in my sound here. Sorry. I don't feel like it was a big shocking reveal, but I felt like it was pretty well done from what I remember. Not one that's stuck in my head super well. So I would definitely probably say this would be about a 2.5 for me as far as that goes. Because it was good. It was fine. It didn't stick too much. It was a pretty good story. So yeah, that's our first one. Up next is Talia. This is by Daniel J. Volop. I don't know if I said that right. So Talia is, it's gore. It's definitely body horror. There are some sexual elements highly throughout this book. There is a number 2. I don't know if I need to read the second one. This one was... It was a lot. Like, it wasn't terrible in any way, shape, or form. But probably midway through, I was just like, okay. Alright. Okay. Yeah, check your triggers. It's a lot of gore. I would probably give it a 2. So, the next one is one of my true crime kind of books that I like to read. So this is about Israel Keys. It's got a long name. American Predator. Let's try that again. The Hunt for the Most Meticulous Serial Killer of the 21st Century. This is by Maureen Callahan. This is a pretty good look into the Israel Keys case. If you guys have not heard about it, he was a prolific serial killer. He got caught in Alaska, but he killed all over the country. I think they give Israel Keys a lot more credit than he's worth, if I'm being honest. But it was a really good look at the case. I enjoyed the book. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts about this case, and I've watched a couple of shows on this case, so it was just kind of a deeper look into it. I found it was interesting. I think it held pretty true to the main story. Because I haven't read anything else particularly on Israel Keys and the case in that kind of depth, I can't tell you, like, what seems to be, this seems a little more like hearsay, or I don't know, all that stuff. It was just an enjoyable book to learn more about that. Anyway, next one. This is Wilder Girls. This was by Rory Power. I'm going to be honest, y'all. I did not like this book. It was very meh to me. Like, it was touted as, like, female Lord of the Flies and things like that. And I just didn't feel it. It was okay. Kind of the same vibe where these girls get caught on this island and they're having to survive, and they're trying to get supplies and stuff from the mainland because this like weird disease has started on this island, and it really kind of goes into there and like the fracturing off of like the people who are bringing in the supplies and what they're doing with the supplies and things like that. You could tell, and things like that. Like, it was a cool concept, but I still found myself really wanting more than what I got, if I'm being honest. I'm just like, I want more than this. I want to know more. I want to dig deeper. I don't know. There was something missing to me, and it just didn't hit. It didn't land, and that's okay. A lot of people really like it. I just wasn't a fan. Oh, but the next one. Oh my god. Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I loved this book. 5 stars. But I love T. Kingfisher. Thus far, everything I have read, I have adored. And this was by far my favorite so far. And this is about a girl who is kind of putting together and doing all these impossible tasks that are set upon her so she doesn't have to kind of go the same route as her sisters in getting married and all this stuff. It's so interesting. I love the characters. I love the voice. It really puts you into this world, and it's funny, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I ate it right up. It was quite cozy to me. I don't know if other people will agree with that, but like I found it like a quite cozy story. Like I want to read it again. I want to re-experience that. And so, yeah, Nettle and Bone, chef's kiss. Next one. Real bummer. This is called Let Me Out, I've Had Enough. This is by Mark Matthews. So this is a collection of stories about people who want to unalive themselves in some way, shape, or another. It's a real bummer. Some of the stories are really interesting, though. I did kind of like it. Some of it was a bit much, where I was just like, oh, this is too whiny for me. I don't like this. I mean, obviously we're talking about horrible things. But in the context of some of the other stories, there were certain stories that I liked better than others. But this is just kind of like a collection of short tales. And it in itself is pretty short. So it was a quick read, one of those like fill in the gaps, and yeah, it was okay. I would say about 3 stars. It wasn't too bad. Up next is Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. This was a good book. It was really creepy. It is I don't want to give anything away, right? But how do I describe it? It almost gave me Doctor Who vibes at certain points. I enjoyed the imagery. I felt like I was in there. Everything kind of felt like, as I read it, it almost felt like things were kind of pressing down on me. Like I knew something was going on, and I kind of felt like I was going crazy along with like these characters that were there. And so it left you in this kind of unease the whole time you were reading it and trying to figure out what's going on. And you're like, no, can't be. You know, like when the weird stuff starts happening. But it had very sci-fi kind of Doctor Who vibes, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. So if you like those kind of like strange, supernatural kind of entity vibes, this is one for you. I loved it. 5 stars. Up next is another little novella that I read, You Won't Believe Me. This is by Sai Balog, I think. Honestly, a 1 or a 2. This one, was hard to, like, I had to, like, make myself finish reading it, and I usually don't do that, but I was almost finished. So I was like, no, just read it, just see where this goes. But this took me longer to read than it probably should have. I just didn't enjoy the story. It was a lot of, like, I know something's up. I mean, this whole thing is about, like, not knowing who to believe and what to believe as to what's happening. Meh. It's a girl that gets kidnapped. It's one of those kind of things where, like, yeah, I don't know. It was alright. Meh. Ooh, but the next one. My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This is by Odessa Moshfegh. I hope I said that right. She also wrote another book that I read, that Lampvana, I believe it's called. This was a good one. I actually listened to this book. This was an audiobook that I listened to, and I listened to it in a day. It was so good. And it was boring in parts, and it was, I don't know, it was consuming. Like, I just wanted to know what was going on. It is literally about a woman who is taking a year off and doing nothing as least as possible. It was very interesting. So I would definitely recommend a read. I would probably put it at about a 4 for me. It was a good one. Up next is The Strange Library. This is by Haruki Murakami. I hope I said that right. So I snagged this one at the library. This was kind of a quick read, very, like, graphic book. Really cool pages, really interesting setup. As for the story, we find I want to say it was a boy who goes into this library and gets ushered into this secret room and then, like, can't leave. Like, he can't leave. And it was rather interesting. I enjoyed the whole experience of this book. Definitely, I don't know how good it would be if it's not in hand, if it's not, like, tangible, unless you had a reader that was, like, full color, so you could really experience the whole, I guess, like, what is that, another word for experience of the book? Like, I don't even know, like, the tactile words. I don't know. If you're gonna read this one, do it in paper form. It's a good one. Up next is another T. Kingfisher, because of course there is. This is the second book to What Moves the Dead. This one is called What Feasts at Night. Another winner in my book. We're following the same person as the first one. We have a whole new adventure, a whole new strangeness coming up. It is eerie, it is funny, it's got a good world building aspect to it. Another 5 for me. I don't know if I'd ever give T. Kingfisher anything less than that thus far. I've loved everything, just honestly. I like the voice. You know, it kind of reminds me, like, it doesn't remind me, but it does, like, Chuck Palahniuk, the writer of Fight Club. I don't know if I say his last name right. He wrote Fight Club. He wrote Haunted. He wrote Doomed and Damned and all kinds of other, like, his narrators, especially his first person narrators, are probably my favorite books. I love the way he writes. I love the way his narrators speak and convey things. And I think that's why I kind of put these two in the same place, because I love the way that they write their characters. I like the way that their characters speak and interact with others. It's just interesting to me. It feels authentic and has that humor in it. So I really like it. Anyway. Okay, so I always say my love of horror started with R.L. Stine. Fear Street books, and I've been able to get my hands on a few of them recently, the old ones from the 80s and 90s. So I read Goodnight Kiss 1 and 2. Super quick reads, so much fun. I realize why I love it so much. It's like a quick mystery. Like, things are like, they happen quick, right? Like, it escalates from like 0 to 10. And then plummets back down, which I think is really funny, but I think that's where it keeps you, right? And you're in this, you know, we're in teenagers, we're in high school, so the level is very low as far as, like, in-depth story. Like, there's no in-depth. This is all surface story with a, you know, a spooky twist, and it was absolutely enjoyable. I preferred the first one, like Goodnight Kiss 1 versus 2, but they were both just, like, a fun kickback. And if you don't know, these are about vampires, from the cover. I'm sure you saw that. So it is kind of vampires lurking in and coming into the school. So that was fun. Next, Come Closer. This was by Sarah Gran. I want to pull this up because I'm going to be honest, I don't remember this. Okay. Oh! Okay. Okay, I remember this now. This was actually a really good book. I just, like, completely spaced on it. So, this is a story about a possible possession where this architect's life starts kind of getting out of control. And it's like, we're not quite sure if there are demonic forces around or within. And so it was just a very, like, I really like the way that this was told. I don't think it's, like, you know, mind-bending and boggling and or anything like that. I don't want to hype it up more than it should. I mean, that sounds bad, but, like, I don't want to hype it up too much, because it wasn't mind-blowing. But I do think that they did a really great job at kind of bringing in the subtleties where you're not quite sure, kind of where to put what's happening. Turns out really well. Goodreads, actually, since I have it pulled up, has a 3.7. I would give it a solid 3. It was a good story. It was a really good story. Up next is another R.L. Stine, The New Girl. So this is about a girl who comes in and this guy falls, like, madly in love, Romeo style. In other words, like, he sees her and her beautiful eyes and he's obsessed. His friends think he's nuts. This girl doesn't seem to exist. He can't quite figure out why. People are saying that she died, but he sees her. One of his friends has her in his class, so he's trying to figure out all this mystery. This is one of the first Fear Street novels, if I'm not mistaken. I had this one as a kid, so this was a reread for me, and I enjoyed it just as much. I found this was a better story than some of the later ones, especially like the vampire ones, like Goodnight 1 and 2, Goodnight Kiss or whatever. This one had more of a what's going on vibe than they usually do. I found that this one took a little bit longer to figure out and longer to unveil, but it was really fun because we got some great action scenes in this one. So if you've never read The New Girl, this is a good one. Oh, up next, I have this one in my hand. This is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Caw, I'm assuming. This was called Brutally Delicious. I agree. It wasn't... I say it was... How do I describe it? Check your triggers. There's a lot of body horror. There's a lot of spooky stuff, I guess. This is more about the ghost of... I don't want to give it away, right? So it's kind of like a ghost story, okay? It's kind of like a seance. They're in a spooky house. A bunch of youngins trying to put something together. And things go a bit awry because of this ghost that's there. A solid 3.5. I was going to say a 4, but I want to back it up just a tad. 3.5. And you can see it's a real short book. I don't want to give much away because it's a short book. Like, if you like some grossness, a ghost story, this is a good one. I liked it a lot. Up next, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So this I've seen around for ages and ages and ages. I picked up a couple of his books. I was like, I'm going to give these a read. It was a very quick read through. Really interesting, The Four Agreements. And it's kind of self-help style. I don't know how I would really describe it. It's kind of like how to kind of gain control over your own emotions by, like, not taking things personally. Don't assume things. That's where the pain and anxiety and things come from. So it had a lot of great messages in there, a lot of things that gave me a lot of things to think about, honestly, and to kind of use with my practice. So it was a great book, quick read, not bad. This next one, Screaming from the Rooftops. I loved this book so much. This is called Night Bitch. It is by Rachel Yoder. I have never felt more seen than this book. Like, if you have given birth and watched this child grow and went through those phases of life, I don't know, it's very raw and real, and I'm gonna be honest, I rooted for this character the whole time. I'm like, yes, girl, do it, yes. So this is a mom who thinks she is turning into a dog, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. It sounds wild. Go for the ride. By far, one book that I would recommend to anyone who's ever felt that motherhood is hard. Who Am I? Read this book. I loved it. I'm going to leave it at that. Go read it. Up next is The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. This one took me a bit to get through. I ended up really just like... I was bummed. I honestly didn't like this book. I didn't. It took me a bit to get through. I read probably about 3/4 of the book, and then when I was just struggling, I'm like, I don't know if I can finish reading this. Like, I'm just kind of over it. Then I switched over to the audiobook. I found the audiobook on my library, and so I just finished listening to it. And honestly, I'm glad I did that, because it was like a lot quicker. I didn't have to waste my time on the rest of the book. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but like, it just wasn't my style. I didn't care for it. So The Pallbearers Club is about a guy who starts a pallbearers club. This is his memoir, and he's given it to one of his friends who has, in the margins and in between his chapters, kind of given her version of it, and kind of goes through his perspective and then her perspective. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of curious in places. But I don't know, you're kind of figuring out, or trying to figure out, what's going through his mind, and then like hearing her point of view, you're like, oh, what's true and what's not. So you have that kind of back and forth. I don't know, it just didn't do it for me in the end. I wanted more to the story, and you know, maybe that was the whole point of it. But I don't know. I wouldn't read it again. I would probably put it about a 2.5 because it wasn't god awful, but like the next one as well. Okay, this is The Salt Grows Heavy. I DNF'd it last time. This is also by the same author. I listened to it this time, and I still didn't care for it all that much. This is kind of about a mermaid and a plague doctor kind of going through this world, and there's some really strange imagery. Allow themselves to be who they truly are, whether that be dark and vile at sometimes. I really, like, it's kind of sad. Like, I've read, like, some of the books, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to say, because it didn't stand out. It just didn't. It was an okay tale. Nah. That's what happens when you take some recommendations and you hear people's hype about it. Like, I heard a lot of hype about it. So I was like, I tried to read it. It didn't work. Listened to it, and I was still like, I just didn't care for it. And I think that's just her style of writing. I enjoyed this, but the voice in this book I just didn't care for. And I know you're not really supposed to like it. I don't know. Next is The Hacienda. This is by Isabel Cañas. Cañas? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I know, I'm horrible at pronouncing things. Another 5. This is a ghost story, a haunted house story, a sick house story, but also has some folk magic elements to it. There is like priests that come in. This is a great story. It's about this woman who marries into this family. This man owns this hacienda. His sister is there. Things have kind of fallen into ruin. Something's wrong within the house. So good. So good. Read it. Okay. Ooh, another one that I have right here. Keywords for Astrology, The Essential Guide. So this is a reprinting. These are the names. Hayo and Anna. I got my tabs on here, but you can see this book is tabbed. So this was a really fun book to play around with. So it tells you all how to use it with your birth chart. But the best part about this, it was the most fun to do, is they have this whole section here, okay, that kind of gives you a sentence, and then you put your chart within it. So my role and my feelings for life are your rising sign, supported or impeded by the planets in the first house. And so it goes down the line for all of this, and you kind of fill in these words, fill in with all the keywords that you were given. It's so interesting. Everything is tabbed really well, as you can see. So if you're looking for the houses, they're tabbed down here. So I'm in the first house. So my North Node is in the first house. My sun is in the second house. And this tells me what that means, right? So I can find all the houses. I can find here all the aspects. If I'm looking for the sun and whatever, the moon and whatever, all the aspects are here. And they give you some really great breakdowns. So like, all here, so moon in the 6th house. We have a keyword of professional adaptation. We have the strength, the problem area, working style. And it gives you a description in each. Let's see what else. I'm still in the houses. Let me pop back here. So Venus, Venus is in for you. Mine, Venus in Cancer, complete love. So the strength, the problem area, image of the young woman, the shadow, eroticism, style of art. So it gives you all of these different sections for what it means in this sign. And the same thing with like what those things are for Venus and Gemini or whatever yours is. So it really gives you a lot of information, and I found it was really easy to understand. It was easy to read because I'm going to be honest, I get lost in the weeds sometimes with astrology. I want the basics as simplified as I can get them. Just because like I want to be able to retain it, and once it starts getting into an area that just kind of goes to maybe like academic or just gets really, really complicated, my brain just wants to shut down. It's like, no. I want the short version. If I want to go into that more, I'll go find that. But for like an overview of my chart and trying to understand my chart, I want chunks. Because if I try to understand the whole thing at once, I'm just going to melt within myself. I'm just going to be honest. So this is a good one for that. And again, it's keywords, so it's awesome because when you get into your actual like sun sign, it's so much information. Thoughts, feelings, actions. We got physical correlations, masculine, feminine. We have pitfalls and strives and shadows and correlations to seasons and mythological things, and this is one that I'm keeping around, and I have referred to it multiple times since I've laid my chart out in it. I just find it really beneficial at breaking everything down and giving some really good information. And called me out more than once. Jeez. Okay, a few more. This next one was gross as hell. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. To Be Devoured. This is by Sarah Tantlinger. This was gross. Like, I put it down twice because I was just like, girl. The imagery, it's gross. But it's good though. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, because we have this girl who is obsessed, like becomes obsessed with vultures. Kind of wants to become vulture-esque. Starts having these tendencies. We see her collecting these feathers and wings and stuff, and her obsession starts to escalate. Y'all better check this before y'all read it. I'm just saying. It's gross. Okay. That's all I'm saying about that one. Next. Up next is The Whisper Man by Alex North. This was so good. So my brother, he listens to a lot of books. He had found this one on Audible, and he was like, man, this was so good. I'm looking for other books like this to read. So that got me intrigued. I was like, okay, let me read a synopsis. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe try Riley Sanger, which I'm Sager, which I'm literally going to mention afterwards. Try their books, try this, that, and the other. And so he was like, you really got to read it. It's really, really good. So I was like, okay, well, I grabbed the audiobook and I was like, well, let me listen to this. And y'all, it was so good. It was so good. This is about, okay, I wanted to get his name. Okay, this is about Tom Kennedy. Okay. His wife passed away. There's all kind of stuff going on, but there has been a serial killer. So it's him and his son. But there's been a serial killer on the loose. He's been taking these boys. They call him the Whisper Man. And so we go through trying to figure out what has happened in the past, who this might be, what's going on right now. It's got some creepy aspects to it. It's a really good, suspenseful story. It had me hooked. I listened to it, I think, in 2 days. Like, I couldn't stop reading it. It was so good. And so I also understood why my brother was like, I need something else that scratches this itch for me. And so that leads me into the next book, because I recommended some of the books that I had read by Riley Sager, or Sager, however you say it. I had read quite a few last year, I believe. So this new one called The Only One Left, my brother read before I did. And he was like, oh my God, I'm like halfway through the book and I'm like, all this stuff is being revealed. Like, what could possibly be left? Like, this got me crazy. And I'm like, okay, wow, I want to read this now. So I snatched it up right away. And the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like back and forth with him. He's like, bro, just wait. Just wait. This was such a good book. It was such a good book. It has Verity vibes. If you've read Verity by Colleen Hoover, I read that last year as well. It's got some of those vibes. But we see this nurse, kind of like no, she's not a nurse. She's a caregiver. You see this, there's a whole section. This caregiver who had a patient where something went wrong. She lost a patient and got put on suspension. She's back and she gets assigned to this woman where she has to live with her until the end of her days, basically. Who is like their town's Lizzie Borden. If you guys know the story of Lizzie Borden, who may or may not have murdered her parents with an axe, this is their version of that. Very reminiscent of Lizzie Borden, because there was this whole rhyme. It's very along those lines. But throughout this whole story, we kind of get a slow reveal of what actually happened. The twists and turns. This book was done right. It had me hooping and hollering the whole time as I'm like figuring this out. Cause like certain parts I'm like, dude, I knew it. And then they throw something else on me and I'm like, wait. What? Wait. Can't be. And then you figure something else out and you're like, dude, I knew it. And then it brings you back and you're like, wait. Holy crap. It's one of those. It's one of those books. Another 5-star. So I read some crappies, but I read some real good ones. This was one of them. Another chef's kiss. And another great writer. I mean, Oh, and the last one. Here we are at the last one. This is the furthest thing from my usual style. However, it still fits into my realm of fantasy that I love, love, love since I was very young. It mixes all the things, and I loved it so freaking much. Oh my god, like an embarrassing amount. I loved this book. And I resisted it because I'm like, this is not, I know y'all like, Dani, shut up and tell us, but I'm telling y'all, this is not what I would normally go towards. I'm just like, shut up and read it. Okay. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I want to live in this land. I never want to leave this. I want this whole cozy world that smells like coffee beans and all the little creatures and I want it all. I want the whole, oh my god. This was the coziest thing. This is true coziness. I never wanted to leave. I immediately wanted to read it again. I grabbed the second one. I haven't started it yet. It's on my audio. I listened to the author read it. It was so good. It was so good. Y'all, it's about Legends and Lattes. A coffee shop. In a land that most people don't know about coffee at all. Go out and read it. It's the best. So anyway, you guys, those are the books that I read. Obviously, I am not a book talker. I'm just telling you what I read and if I liked it or not. I'm not good at giving synopsis and summaries, so don't at me. I'm not a booktuber. I'm just sharing because I know a lot of us have a lot of the same taste or can recommend books off of each other, and that's really what this is about. It's just like, hey, this is what I've read. Tell me what you read. So definitely leave those comments down below. I'm going to have a link to all the books that I talked about here, and you can find my links all down below as usual. But I hope you enjoyed. I can't wait for the next installment of this at the end of the year. I am doing some intense study right now, so I'm still reading my books in between, so I don't know if I'm gonna have as many. I don't know how I'm gonna be consuming books right now, but yeah, I already have like a few that I'm in the weeds in and almost done with, so I look forward to chit-chatting more about those very, very soon, and I'm sending you all my love. Mwah! Later, Gators.